Well, I'm joined now by Seth Schachner, who's the Managing Director of Strat Americas, which specialises in advising clients on media and technology partnership.
The Managing Director of Strat Americas, a consulting practice focusing on media and technology. Seth, good to see you. Good to have you here.
After 148 days, the writers' strike now behind us, thankfully. Your reaction to this deal, do you think it was good for both parties?
Yeah, I mean, I think the writers actually really had a big win here, Alexa. They scored some key points that are, kind of game changers in the way they're going to be working with Hollywood studios and streamers.
There's an interesting kind of push and pull going on in Hollywood between embracing the theaters, which, have basically been the lifeblood of this industry, and which I think the traditional Hollywood interests really want to support. But also we had a pandemic and we've had this outburst of the streaming landscape, and the two are kind of in tension right now.
They've done a magnificent marketing campaign.
Yeah,
the partnerships that are out there are spectacular. Streamers have figured out there are different price points that are out there. That consumers might not be so price sensitive on the subscription side of things. Disney's seeing it, so is Netflix, so they're pushing that subscription price up, but at the same time they're also doing away with kind of the mid-tier, and they're making more. They call it ARPU, the average revenue per user on the ad-supported stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're emphasizing the free plans too, and it's all about profitability now. It's not just about getting subscribers and building lots of programming, and it's probably a smart strategy.
I think that there is a increasingly rarer category of music artists that are kind of above the fold and have really merged amongst all of them. And certainly she's one of them. And Beyonce's another one, Springsteen, even artists like U2, Bad Bunny, some of the ones from Latin markets. And live touring, particularly since we got through the pandemic, has been, I think an enormously influential activity for artists and money-earning activity, particularly at the top end.
Former major label executive. Seth, before we get legal, I mean, when you listen to these two songs, do you hear the similarities?
Yeah, I do. Not identical, but I do for sure. I think there's somewhat similar.
There's only so many notes and very few chords used in pop music. Coincidence is bound to happen. If 60,000 songs are being released every day on Spotify, there's 22 million songs a year, and there's only 12 notes that are available. Does he make a good point, Seth?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid, excellent point. I think, I don't know, no one owns chords, basically, and I think it's hard to show that people even own chord progression.
I do think over time, if they can free up those exclusivities between these venues and the ticketing services, then yes, it's good to have more competition that's in there. I will say this, biggest platform, most scalable. The artists are turning to it. They're not coming out and supporting it in any big way, but they're using it regularly. Got to wonder about that a little bit. A really cool thing about collectibles, mostly, right? I mean, people are taking these things home. There's scented vinyl, colored vinyl. I think Taylor Swift's got stuff that you can form a clock out of. So it's a super cool thing from a collectible standpoint.
This is a very big deal.
Yeah, I mean, Tupac, like artists like Nipsey Hussle or, some of the others, Biggie Small, really means something to his fans and his community. And it still resonates, and I think that's why we're talking about this, 30 years later, not just the legal case. It's great that it's been, resolved or someone's been caught, but it really means something in terms of how he spoke to his community, a lot of credibility.
There's a really strong underlying concern around, AI and that For You page that is the front page of TikTok. Whether that can be manipulated or used to send political messages, propaganda.
So let's talk about AI and folks' feelings about it with Strat America's Managing Director, Seth Schachner.
For those of us who've worked with it, and I've actually touched it in a lot of different ways in the entertainment and music, different digital aspects of it, it's got a lot of good things you can do with it. Things that people don't always recognize, that don't kind of rise to the surface, if you will. Creating sound mixes and tailoring things for advertisers. So there's plenty of good stuff with it. There are some disruptive aspects to it. Here in Hollywood and media, a lot of it isn't licensed yet. The landscape isn't clear. So everyone from writers to creators are looking at it with a little bit of fear as well. And I think that's fair as well. But I always come out that it's going to be managed in some way by humans, and it will find its rightful place.
In the short term, the streaming compensation for artists, particularly in music, has obviously been a much tougher challenge for them. them. But in the long term, when you open up some of these new channels, you not only bring about greater audiences, but you bring lots of different digital platforms that are out there.
And it's been sitting around for 40 years, and they're not recreating it with the robot or anything. It's just separating sound and purifying it. And I think a lot of people struggle to simplify it. Sir Paul's probably right to explain it that way, and it's a great thing.
Why do you think Twitter finally agreed to this?
I think Twitter has long been a pretty curious, kind of smaller, quirky, kind of unsuccessful digital platform, if you will. And to be, I think, really candid, I don't think the board had a lot of great choices.
We are very glad that you are here, Seth. Thanks so much for coming on.